Right, let's bring on Dr. Ryan Smart for our weekly SOS house call. And, Dr. Smart, I know you're a hockey guy, so let's start with hockey. And Alexander Ovechkin becoming the NHL's all-time goal-scoring leader over the weekend. He's played nearly 1,500 games. He's missed 37 due to injury, most of them coming in the last 5 years. So as someone who's played hockey, I know you work with the Cornell men's hockey team. Can you speak to how impressive that is to play 1,500 NHL games and miss 37 because of injury? And why do you think that is? Why has he been able to stay so healthy?
Yeah, no, that's an unbelievable stat. I think it's a couple things. One, I think guys like him are just a little bit different species. I really think some of them are just made differently. Now, hockey is a little unique in the sense, though, to stay healthy. It's one, I was thinking about this. Ovechkin, I can't remember ever seeing the guy ever really get hit. I've seen him hit guys, but I don't know if you guys remember Eric Lindros back in the day.
Oh, yeah,
across
sure.
the middle with his head down and get crushed by Scott Stevens.
Yep.
Ended his career. Like, Ovechkin's never done that. And so I think it's knowing how to avoid hits. And then he's a goal scorer. He's not a shot blocker. Guys that are going down and blocking shots, that they hit you in places that you don't want that hard puck hitting you. So it is a little bit the style he plays, and I think it is just him just being a big, strong guy and just play in a way that kind of keep himself from harm's way. And if there's any physical thing going down, he's usually the initiator and not the one taking the blow. So I think that's factored into it.
All right, let's go to the NBA, and Celtic star Jaylen Brown has been dealing with a knee injury. It's been diagnosed as a bone bruise and posterior impingement. Playoffs are approaching, and he recently said at a press conference that the rest really isn't helping, that he's just going to try to feel things out and try to play his way through it. Based on the injury and what you know about it, is there a level of concern about long-term risk if he plays through it? Can you kind of explain the injury to us and how you would anticipate he's going to handle it here moving forward?
Yeah, that's a pretty vague diagnosis. I mean, a bone bruise is obviously inflammation and bruising in the bone. The posterior impingement, that's just like it's a very vague catch-all term, but it means some soft tissue structure is impinging potentially against the bone. So that could be leading to the bone bruise. So it's not structural. It's not an ACL tear. It's not something like that. So if you play on it, I think the risk of having long-term issues is very low. But it's certainly an annoying problem and one that can produce pain and affect his performance. So I think it's one of those things that he's just going to have to play through and then ultimately probably be dealt with potentially, after the season with like a knee arthroscopy to clean out, the tissue that could be impinging on the bone. But yeah, it is a little bit of a concern because it means he's probably dealing with it for the postseason.
One of the highlights of the early baseball season so far came from Mariners outfielder Victor Robles, who dove over a short fence into a protective netting to catch a foul ball just a few days ago. He had to leave the game with a dislocated shoulder. The timeline for his return is unclear. Now, over the years, we've seen athletes, different sports kind of pop their shoulder back in.
Subluxation, Steve.
There you go. And continue playing. Cody Bellinger did it with the Dodgers a few years back. That's one example. In what situations, Dr. Smart, is it all right for an athlete to do that and would be able to continue playing? Does it matter on the sport? Does it matter on the position of that athlete? Can you kind of walk us through that?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of everything. I mean, it's the hand they are, it's their throwing hand, what sport. Obviously, if you're a receiver, you need to get your arms above your head, or a basketball player, high risk. But it depends. Like, a subluxation it came out partially, went back in. A dislocation, it's totally out, and you have to put it back. Depends on the person. Some people are naturally more loose jointed than others, so they could be prone to have a shoulder go out. In that situation, you hurt less structures when the joint goes out because it's not as tight. Whereas if you're a tight jointed person, it forcefully goes out. There's more structural damage. So a lot of times for me, it's imaging and MRI, which will really let you know how much damage did the joint take when that dislocation or subluxation occurred. And if it's relatively mild, then it's, hey, get back, rehab it, get back as fast as you can. But say if there's bony involvement or more damages under the joint, those are ones that probably will take a little bit longer, and you try to let heal up and then let them go and see if they can do it. And then if they can't, then they're the ones sometimes that end up needing surgery.
Let's stay with baseball, and we've talked about Tommy John surgery on this show many times with you folks over at SOS. as somebody who works as a team physician for several high schools in New York, have you noticed, either through your work or just kind of in general, an increase in shoulder injuries among high school pitchers? Because we know it's a problem certainly in the majors, even at the college level as well. Have you noticed it with high school pitchers? And how do coaches and players kind of walk that fine line between not overusing a certain pitcher, but also having your best guys on the mound for the most important games?
Difficult, and I was thinking about this when I saw the question, and I actually think I've seen less shoulder
Really?
and less elbows through the years. Yeah,
Is that awareness? Do you think? Is that awareness?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think it may be awareness and knowledge, and then does the pitch count factor in, especially at the younger, more youth levels? It probably does. But then there's also the factor of, to be kind of good, you got to throw. And I think there is, and I just equate throwing a little bit to like running. I mean, some people's bodies can just run seemingly forever and not get injured, and others run and break down sooner. So I think everybody's a little bit different. We know the harder you throw, the more prone you are to injury, which just makes sense because there's so much more torque going across that shoulder and the elbow when velocity goes up. So, but I think as the awareness has dropped, the injuries, at least at the youth level, and it's probably not been a bad thing because then you got your better players hopefully not being hurt as much.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, that's certainly good news if it's going down. That means, as you said, the training's working, the awareness is working, the pitch count's working. That's why those things are in place. Hopefully to reduce the risk of injury. Great stuff as always, Dr. Ryan Smart. We appreciate you coming on. Enjoy the rest of your week.
All right, thanks, guys. Appreciate it.